tickets. So they went and bought lottery tickets, and that's the S&L crisis. But this is a housing problem. This is because, why did we form S&Ls? To make it easy for Americans to own homes. How many of you rent? Well, you're students. Most of you probably rent. So let me ask well, anybody. How many of you paid off your mortgage? You own your home outright. A few of you, right? Thank you for all of you who rent. Well, you have to pay taxes for me to thank you, but if you pay taxes, you rent, or you have paid off your home, you guys are subsidizing my mortgage. I appreciate it, because I have a pretty large mortgage. Because I get to deduct the interest that I pay on my mortgage, you don't get to deduct your rent, and you don't get to deduct your paid off mortgage. So we have government policy that encourages people to take on debt in a very simple way for buying their home. And we encourage people to buy a home. There are lots of ways in which we do this. We encourage speculation. How do we encourage speculation in home buying? You know that if you make money on your house, what's the capital gains rate? 0. There's no capital gains up to the first $500,000 of profit. And that's a lot of profit on a home, right? First $500,000 of profit, there's no capital gains tax. The only asset class that exists. Pretty cool stuff. They want you to buy a home. Government's not neutral about this question. And that's before I start talking about Freddie and Fannie and the Federal Home Loan Bank and half a dozen other government-run institutions that all exist to get you into a home at all costs. In 1999, Freddie and Fannie, they're government creations, and you know why they were created? You know, people talk about CDOs and securitized mortgages and all this stuff. Well, who created those? Well, Freddie and Fannie were created in order to securitize mortgages. That was their purpose. That's why government created them. So before that, they were run pretty conservatively. They securitized mortgages. They created these CDOs, collateralized debt obligations. You don't have to know what they mean. I can tell you afterwards if you're really interested. And everything was fine. 1999, Clinton told them, we want you to have up to half of your portfolio in Alt A and subprime, which are the lower quality mortgages. They'd only be doing the higher quality loans. So they started doing lower quality mortgages. And there wasn't enough in the marketplace for them to have half their portfolios. They encouraged more and more creation of really, really, really low quality mortgages. And they would buy them. So bankers didn't care. They would just, and Freddie and Fannie would just package them and sell them. And we can get, if you ask me about the rating agencies and all that stuff, I'd be happy to answer. But this kind of work. But you see, they were government entities. They didn't care how much risk they were taking. By some estimates, they will leverage hundreds of dollars to $1 of equity. No private organization could ever carry that leverage. Nobody would lend it money. But why were people lending money to Freddie and Fannie? Because the government guaranteed their debt. So they could do whatever they wanted. They could lower rates as much as they wanted, and they were immune from any kind of market discipline. So, just those two things. Government funneling money towards housing, encouraging us to funnel our money towards housing, making it so attractive, so cheap, and then creating interest rates where you'd be stupid not to do it. We all did it. We all took on mortgages, and then they told us, and Alan Greenspan said, the best type of mortgage you should take is a variable rate mortgage. Fixed rate mortgages, those are passé. If you look at the past, they never pay off. They don't pay off as well as a variable rate mortgage. We all have variable rate mortgages really are bad when bad times happen. And he said low interest rates will stay forever, and for some reason Americans believe that as well. So here's an accumulation, but all coming from the top. Now, did people behave badly? Sure. Homeowners bought homes they couldn't afford. Banks issued loans they should have never issued. Investors bought securities they should have never bought because they didn't understand the cash flows. Lots of people made stupid mistakes. But if we're looking for underlying causes, the causes are all government related. And this stuff, I think, is not very hard. I think this stuff is pretty easy. The economics of it are not that tough. Yeah, if you get into CDSs and CDOs and the derivatives part of it, it gets very complicated. That's why regulators can't regulate it, because they don't understand it. They just don't. They can't hire the talent to understand it because it costs too much money. But if you put that side of the market aside, and it's not a big part of this crisis anyway, this is easy stuff. So why did nobody, almost nobody, stand up and say, no? Why did everybody buy the story that this is the market, this is Wall Street, this is bankers, this is capitalism? Now, let's do a little bit of kind of a loose definition. What do we mean by capitalism? Right? I mean by capitalism, I mean free markets. Free of what? When we say free markets, free of what? Free of government, free of control, free of regulations, free of manipulation, free of intervention. So removed from markets. So just a simple thought experiment. Right? How could capitalism have failed if capitalism means free markets when there were no free markets in 2007? So the idea is in 2007 we had capitalism and it failed. What are the markets that fail? Banking, mortgage business, and housing. Right? Free markets. Those are the main culprits in this crisis. I would challenge you to find 3 more regulated, controlled, and manipulated markets in the United States. Banking is by far the most regulated business. Maybe electrical utilities are more regulated, but just barely more regulated. Regulators are involved in every aspect of the creation of a bank, of the running of a bank, of the expansion of a bank. You cannot do a bank merger without regulatory approval. You cannot found a bank, just start a bank, you cannot start a bank in the United States of America, the land of the free, without getting permission from the regulators for your business plan, for your executive team, for your board of directors, and for your investors. You cannot start a bank in the United States without those 4 things. In other words, without permission and without approval of everything. Right? Because that's everything that you need to start a bank. That's not exactly capitalism, not exactly free markets. Regulators go into the offices of banks, particularly the big banks, at least every quarter and examine their books and penalize them and tell them which loans to write down, which loans are okay, which loans are not. That's not capitalism. Every bank in the United States is regulated by at least 5 different regulatory agencies. See if I remember them all. Federal Reserve, FDIC, Federal Deposit Insurance, OCC, you didn't even know there was such a thing, the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency. This is a leftover from the Civil War that never went away and keeps finding new responsibilities. State regulators, in which the bank functions, and if you're cross states, you get multiple states regulating you. And if you're public, the SEC. And then more, right? These are just the obvious ones. There are more little ones. Freddie and Fannie each had a regulatory agency dedicated just to them. They didn't regulate anybody else. Freddie had one, Fannie had one. And they were the biggest bankruptcies in the whole system. So, just on its face, without any economic analysis, without looking at anything, this crisis is about regulations and government. Can't be about capitalism, because there was no capitalism. Can't be about free markets. There were no free markets. If this crisis had happened in, I don't know, what's a relatively free market up there? What's that? Well, I was thinking within the United States even. What's a relatively free industry? Yeah, computers. If this crisis had happened in computers, maybe in that case markets have failed. But it didn't. It happened in housing, which is heavily regulated, mortgages with, Freddie and Fannie dominate, and banking, which is controlled and regulated by government. So this is the easy stuff. It really is. I have not heard yet a semi-legitimate, rational argument that would point this to government. And I've done plenty of debates on this topic. I've seen plenty of people try to explain the other side. There is no legitimate argument, in my view, and you can try to make one later if you want, and how this is caused by the free market or caused by capitalism. Because Free markets and capitalism didn't exist in 2007, 6, 5, 4. Indeed, they haven't existed in this country for a very, very long time, particularly in those three areas. So what's going on? Something's going on, right? There's some big conspiracy, right, to hide the truth. No, okay. What is it that prevents people from getting it and from understanding it? And what is it, more importantly, that creates this gut response, almost instinctual, to blame markets and capitalism? By the way, this isn't new. The Great Depression was blamed on bankers and capitalism, and most economists today, I think most economists, even ones on the left, would agree, looking back at the data, the government made a huge amount of mistakes that caused the Great Depression. Nobody can legitimately argue that FDR got us out of the Great Depression, because unemployment in 33 when he took office and 39 when the war started in Europe was the same, basically, and the economy had been flat almost throughout, with some ups and downs, basically flat. We know this stuff, yet we still teach our kids in school that the Great Depression was caused by, not by the Federal Reserve and not by the government, but by, why? What is this thing that prevents us from giving credit to markets, from blaming government for not allowing us to celebrate markets or to, give them the credit they deserve? Unless, with very, very few exceptions. What are markets about? You're cheating because you probably know. You read the end of the book. It's not fair. I hate students. Self-interest. How does that manifest itself? Well, I like to use my iPhone. There's a problem. When Steve Jobs makes one of these, why does he do it? Why did he do it? Unfortunately, he's not with us anymore. But why did he do it? Profit is certainly one thing. These things have, as I like to say, he didn't get up every morning and think, what will maximize the benefits to Yaron? Because I would have wanted to pay half of this, and the profit margins of these are about 60%. He didn't wake up every morning and say, I'm going to maximize social utility, make my fellow man better off. He got up every morning and said, how can I make the coolest, prettiest, most efficient, whatever, that I want? You know how many focus groups Apple ran? 0. You know how many consumer surveys they did? 0. And they're, by the way, really hated for this, particularly by marketing professors who teach that that's the way to do marketing. Steve Jobs created these because he loved it, because he had fun doing it, because he believed in it, and because he made a lot of money doing it. All of those things, loving it, having a passion for it, believing in it, and wanting to make money at it, are all self-interested reasons. When you go buy something, Adam Smith got this, right? When you go and buy bread from the baker, he's not selling it to you because he likes you. He's selling it to you because that's how he makes a living. He's trying to take care of himself and his children and his family and his wife. So we know, we all know, even kids know, that people in business are in it for themselves. They're in it to make money, and they're in it to have fun, and they're in it to pursue their self-interest. Now there's another piece to the marketplace, and of course I went and bought one of these in the mall. And the first iPhone that I bought was in 2008, just as the economy was kind of spiraling out of control. So I went to the mall because I wanted to stimulate the economy. Right? That's why you guys go to the mall, right? You go buy stuff because you care about your fellow man and you want to make sure they have jobs, right? Consumption creates jobs, haven't you heard? That's Keynes and Krugman's theory of how the economy works. So you want to be good consumers because you want to create jobs, right? We go to the marketplace because we want to make our lives better. I bought this because I thought it was cool. I thought it would make me more productive and I would have fun with it. And I was thinking only of me when I bought it. And you guys are kind of feeling uncomfortable a little bit right now because you know that's true. Well, some of you are not. Because you know that's true. You're all really, selfish. And you act this way. All the time I used to ask I used to ask my students when I taught, I used to ask, how many of you, when you decided what to study in college, what to major in college, how many of you sat down and made a list of all the possible professions and then ranked them based on their social utility? And chose the one with the highest social utility and went for that. And there's always one poor bastard at the end. And I said, how many of you chose your major because you thought you would enjoy it, you thought you would make money at it, you thought you would have fun doing it, and I'd say, you selfish bastards. Because they were all selfish, right? So here we are, here's a marketplace in which producers are selling us stuff for their self-interest, because they're motivated by profit, because they want to make their lives better, because they're trying to take care of themselves. And here's a marketplace where we go into to try to make our lives better, to try to feed our families, to try to buy good stuff that we can use, that'll make us, and some of it's just for fun, and some of it's for productivity, and whatever. Everybody in the marketplace is going to the marketplace with the intent of pursuing their own self-interest. They might be wrong. It might turn out that they don't. It might turn out that they buy something they didn't really want, or they might just be driven by emotion or whatever. But their intention is to pursue, to make their lives better. Marketplace is a place in which people are pursuing what they think at that moment is going to enhance their lives in some way, or emotionally feel that it's going to, but it's about them. It's about being selfish, being self-interested. Now, what do we know? What do we know? It's why some of you squirm a little bit when I say that. And if you don't, then other groups when I speak to certainly do. What do we know about selfishness? What do we know about self-interest? Well, I know that when I was growing up, I grew up in a good Jewish family. And my mother told me, think of yourself last. Think of others first. Selflessness is the essence of virtue. She wasn't quite Christian, so she didn't say sacrifice, right? But sacrifice is the moral ideal, right? It's just a fact. Not a slam on anybody, except my mother. Now, my mother failed dramatically, as you can tell. But she, like everybody else, their intention is to grow up a kid with morals. And morals means, in the culture we live in today, it means being selfless. It means giving up stuff. It means sacrifice. What is a sacrifice? When we trade in the marketplace, when I buy the iPhone, who loses? No one. Win-win, right? I buy something for a certain amount of money that I think is worth more than that amount to me. The other party is selling it for profit. So it was worth less to them. Win-win. Right? What's a sacrifice? Do both parties win? Then it's a trade. Then it's not a sacrifice. What's a sacrifice?
Net loss.
Net loss. Somebody has to lose. So if I'm sacrificing, I'm giving something up and expecting what in return? Less or nothing. That's what a sacrifice means. And our ethic today and our culture is all about sacrifice. That equals virtue. Self-sacrifice is virtue. So think of Bill Gates, right? Here's a guy who created billions and billions and billions of dollars of wealth for himself and for many others. He sold us products we all bought, we all used. Our lives are gazillion times better because we use them. Now this is from an Apple person, so it's hard for me to say this, but it's true in spite of the fact that I've been an Apple devotee since '89.
Office.
I still use Office. There you go. So even we use Office on Apple, right? And yet, when he made his money, what did we think of him from an ethical perspective? We might have thought he was a great businessman, but what did he think of him as an ethical person, as a moral person? Mostly nothing. Wasn't an issue. Somewhat negative. He's greedy. He's making a lot of money for himself. He's not giving a lot away. A lot of people thought negative things about Bill Gates. You know, I don't know if you saw the articles that came out about a week after Steve Jobs died. They didn't do it the first week because they had some respect. But about a week later, criticizing him. Why did they criticize him? He only cared about his own point of view. He wasn't a good boss because he yelled at people sometimes, and he didn't really respect their point of view when they were wrong. Because obviously he was right, because look at the success Apple's had. And he wasn't philanthropic. So obviously he was a bad guy. The fact that he created all this wealth, the fact that he created all these products, the fact that so many of us use them, all that is irrelevant. The guy was a bad guy because he wasn't sacrificing. He didn't do anything for his fellow man, right? He did a huge amount for his fellow man. But what's the problem? Why don't we like him? Because he gained from it. Now take Bill Gates today. What do we think of him today? From an ethical perspective, how's Bill Gates?
It's the same one.
No, he's not quite a saint. I'll tell you how he becomes a saint in a minute. Don't take my lines away. He's good. You know, these are rhetorical questions, right? No, I'm kidding. I like the comment. He's great right now because he's giving it away.